Welcome back to We Know Scripted TV, where today we know Yellowjackets season 3, all of season 3. We've devoured it, we've watched it all, and we're ready to dive deep on a feedback special bonus pod. My name is Grace, but of course I'm not alone. I'm here with Jess Sterling. Jess, how you doing?
I'm waiting on the edge of my seat for a season 4 renewal, Grace. I'm unwell until we get confirmation that we will get more of this show.
Well, probably the only way we'll do this is if we make a sacrifice to the wilderness. But I suggest not sacrificing our lovely guest who's here with us. So that means it's one of you or I, Jess, who's dying because we're joined. We're so lucky. This individual was on a RHAP podcast recently with Rob. And Jess heard her ears burns, where they were like Yellow Jackets, and we reached out. And Todd Herzog is here. Todd, how you doing?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me. I love that I casually mentioned Yellow Jackets on RHAP and you guys wanted me here. So thank you for having me. I'm stoked to be here. Huge fan of Yellow Jackets. So this is exciting.
Yes. Okay. Well, then everybody has heard Jess and I wax poetic about how good this season has been. That it did a lot. It did more than any other show I think on TV this year, and so we really enjoyed it. And so let the audience know, Todd, what did you think of season 3 of Yellow Jackets?
Okay, so I love this season. I thought it was phenomenal. I know a lot of people have been kind of back and forth with it, but for me, I felt like every single episode there were moments where I was like, "Oh, what's happening?" There were so many things that made me continuously think about the show. It made me think about what could potentially be happening, who was going to die, what was going to happen next. And if a TV show can do that for me, then it's gold in my book. So, yeah, that's my overall opinion on the season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm there with you. I think especially from like episode 6 onward, it was like they can't top it. There's no way. They can't top it. Every episode almost felt like a finale in a sense with just how
Yes.
far they were willing to go. And I know we are coming off of I think what some people would say is like a little bit of a sophomore slump with season 2. I know not everyone was super happy with it. Honestly, I've had some time to sit with it and I've had some time to really think about it. Season 3 is my favorite season of the show.
Whoa.
And that is a huge statement considering how much I loved season 1. Like it pulled me in like a show. I really don't think I think the best comparison would be like a Lost sort of a show, like the mystery box that makes you want to go on the forums online, makes you want to dive into Reddit and like see what everyone is thinking about the show. Season 3 had that feeling for me where I never knew what they were going to do next. And Grace, I don't know. I know some people have mentioned this. Season 3 came after a season 2 and 3 renewal. So, like, they were
Mm.
guaranteed a season 3 when they were doing season 2. Is there anything to them really going full force because they don't know if they'll get another season? Do you think there's any kind of validity to that?
It could be. I mean, it's interesting. It is interesting to think back about the fact that they had a 2-season renewal and the fact that, yeah, I do think generally people felt like season 2 was maybe a little bit slower. It sort of had this thing of the slow continuing, like the sort of Yellow Jackets coming together and doing a hunt in making a sacrifice in the sort of present day. So it's really interesting to think about like how much of that is like a reaction to everything. um I don't know. I kind of want to live in the world where it's not them being scared of a renewal, and this is just how they make television. Let's not forget the very first thing we ever see on the show that we all were like, yeah, we'll watch more of that, was them eating a body. Like,
Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Well, okay, and so like kind of going off of that whole point though is like I feel like season 2 was a more of a character building in a
yeah,
way where it was like we have to learn who these people are now and who they were out there. And so
yeah,
that's why I was in a lot of people's eyes slower. I love a good character building season because I feel
yeah.
like it's necessary because you have to have someone to root for, right?
Mhm.
Especially with a whole lot of the theme of this season being who's going to be the last girl basically. And so it's like you have to have someone to root for, but you also have to have someone you really don't want to root for. And so that
So who are you rooting for then is my question because I think
Mm.
this is maybe a little bit of a polarizing question of like who's your favorite? Who do you want to be the last Yellow Jacket standing?
Misty. I love Misty. I always have loved
Yeah.
Misty, but I also have always loved Christina Ricci. Like I'm a diehard Christina Ricci fan. But I think that she does her character so well because she's absolutely insane on every level. But you some for some reason love her. Like you want to relate and root for her. I mean, the cat sweaters and she's a bird lover, and it's just so odd and a weird character, but she does it so well. So I'm a Misty fan. And
I keep
then
being like Todd. I keep being like, yeah, Misty killed people, but that was before. And it's
yeah,
like
that was
season one.
then.
That
That
was
was then.
then.
Yeah.
That was season one.
She's the
Misty.
reason they're out there, but that's fine. Like,
Whatever. We
you
all
know,
make
She's trying to
mistakes.
fix that. She's trying to fix it. Yeah, I
she's
think
true.
a lot of people are thinking that Misty could be kind of the final girl, to put it into like horror movie terms, because it seems like at the end of this season they're really setting up a Shauna versus Ty battle that we
Yes.
really haven't seen before, though we have seen them be two of the most formidable in terms of being able to be a leader and get people behind them. And I kind of agree with you. If any of the Yellow Jackets are going to be the sole survivor, I feel like it has to be Misty, because she's almost Littlefinger-esque in that she's able to kind of parasitically like latch on to the leader and then just survive.
Well, here's a theory thought for you, okay? So
Please.
they're always talking about the sacrifices to the wilderness. Misty gave them or she gave the wilderness them in the first place
Oh,
Whoa.
with breaking the
with the
transponder.
transponder. It's the ultimate
Mm,
sacrifice,
Wow.
in my opinion, because
that's a
none of
really
that
good
would have
point.
happened.
It's true. That's very good.
So,
Yeah, I like that a lot.
because we see a lot of the evil coming through the other girls, like a lot of the wilderness or like the Antler Queen's evil or whatever you want to call it, coming
Mhm.
through Shauna, coming through Ty, and even Lottie and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, but it's not with Missy. Missy's just doing it.
There's a thing that I was picking that I feel like just you were like you were pinning it on me in terms of I felt like we were heading early on in this season into like full blown Shauna versus Misty territory of things kept happening to Shauna, and Shauna's first thing was like it's Misty. And I do think while that it didn't totally go away, like we get Misty going and confronting Callie in the which is like that's a Shauna thing as well, and they have a confrontation in the finale. But to think that potentially we're setting up for an eventual like Shauna is so dismissive of Misty that as sort of this thing happens, she might not be able to see how much of a threat Misty is, which might be set up extremely well from season one, and which like I joke about, but she did kill the journalist. Like she has made these moves to protect herself and the people who are out there. And I think that that could be very fun. You're a Misty fan, as we all are, but I'm wondering, like,
Right.
Listen.
big topic of conversation has been essentially Shauna's version of like Breaking Bad, and all of the whole show is about trauma, and it's sort of like trauma that happens to you sometimes when you're a teenager and how you can continue to hold on to it as an adult, but obviously the most extreme version of what if they were in a plane crash and ate each other. And Shauna's had some pretty terrible stuff happen to her, and yet I do feel like this season, we get this like pretty tremendous monologue at the end of the season. But what are you feeling about sort of Shauna settling into maybe you know an antagonist role?
I don't hate it, to be honest with you. I think it's kind of awesome. So when the younger version of Shauna is very easy to hate because she's so just angry at the world and she's pretty horrible. And so like seeing Shauna now and she's like still kind of unfazed by everything almost. It seems like she can kill someone. And she's like, yeah, I know. Yeah, but it's fine. Like, yeah, it happened. I'm sorry. It's so calm about everything. And I feel like we're starting to see young Shauna really come out, obviously, with, like the whole eat it scene from 2 episodes ago. That was just intense. And it's like, okay, why do I hate her so much, but also am like, okay, get it, Shauna. It's
Yeah.
weird.
I think part of it is it's Melanie Linsky and Sophie Nélisse, and like how do you not fall in love with them as actors? But
Agreed.
But also it feel I know there's been some dissenting opinions in terms of how did we get here? How is Shauna all of the sudden a big bad? I think I would argue it's been there the whole time. We've just been
Yes.
slowly building to it. And a lot of I've read some interviews with the creators, and something they like to point out is just how memory is affected and how
Mm,
trauma affects memory, and how what we're seeing isn't necessarily always objectively what happened. I know they played a lot with this in the kind of mirroring moments from the pilot where we see Pit Girl as Mari and kind of all of that stuff. We get the little smirk from Misty, right? We thought that was, oh, is that an evil smirk back on the pilot? But it turns out no, she's happy she got one over on Shauna, right?
Yes.
With Nat and the sat phone. And so I think what they liked to point out in some of these interviews is it's not necessarily it's they remembered it differently than maybe exactly what happened, right?
Yes. So Travis said like answered all of this for me as he said, whose reality are we living in?
mm,
Mhm.
And that was also said earlier on in the season in the cave, like something about an alternate reality.
right.
And so I was like, it's very clear here that we're seeing different people's memories of the things and their versions of it or their reality of what's happening. So you are 100% on the nose, I think, with that.
There's a thing that the show really liked to do that I thought they actually did really effectively that I've seen other shows try to do that they don't do effectively, which is they'll be like, they'll tease something and then we're all like, oh, it's that thing. And then they're like, oh, nope, it's not that thing. It's another thing. And then surprise, no, it was the first thing all along. So like the best example of that, I think, is Callie. Everyone was like, ooh, what if Callie killed Lottie? And then they were like, oh, it's Shauna's DNA. Shauna's like it's confirmed it's Shauna's. We're like, oh, okay. Like it's probably Shauna. Like maybe there's a way it's Callie's DNA, but that doesn't, totally makes. And then it's like, no, it's actually surprise. It's Callie. I
It
do
is.
feel like there was a big thing this season, Todd, of were you onto what are we going to call it? Like
Yellow tint.
yellow tint gate, maybe, where all of there was a noticeable different like tinting
Yes.
of the flat of the 90s stuff that then basically once we were that seemed to just be like a spring summer thing in retrospect. There definitely still could be the world where like we flash back at some point and be like, oh no, it was actually, worse than the sort of dream version that they had going on out there, which yeah.
I thought the same thing because I called it the VHS look.
Right.
So
Right.
it was like
Yeah.
anytime they went to the VHS look, it was like, okay, I feel like this is someone specific's version of reality type thing because it was changing, but they made it obvious that it was there. You know what
Right.
I mean? For a reason. The reason I just don't know exactly why yet.
Well, the other it could be just the reason could be like they only thought to do this like by season 3. They're like, it
Yeah,
looks really great. Like there is a world where it's like it was just to represent it's a different season, and then
Sure.
like, and also there is sort of this momentum of like there is a like in the spring and summer when they like things were going more well than the winter has, so they want this more like lively upbeat thing. But I think it is fun to think about the world where the tint does mean something. But
And there's still a chance it does. I mean, just because we didn't get the answer in this season doesn't mean we won't. I think this is a show that is really good at setting things up early for like a later payoff, right? The writers have said, we knew it was Mari all along. It was just getting there. And they
getting
had a
to
little
that
bit of a
point.
red herring with Hannah, right? Like they want us to question whether or not what we're seeing is 100% accurate, because we have our characters in the present day, like Ty, as an example, in the finale, mirroring that shot where she sits with Shauna at the diner. She's now sitting with Misty at the diner,
mm,
talking about how I kind of had forgotten how bad Shauna was out there. And I just think like we're meant to question if everything happening in the 90s storyline is exactly what went down out there. So while I think we're seeing like factual things in terms of, yes, Mari is dead. Yes, Mari was Pit Girl. I think the way those are kind of interpreted as the characters and like the actual emotional states of these characters, everything is in question, in my opinion, because I don't know that any one of these characters is a reliable narrator. And truly, if our most reliable narrator is Misty Quigley, like, we all need to be a little concerned, you know?
I mean, we could go back, or we could go as crazy even as saying, like, maybe the tint does have something to do with it, but every time it was that specific tint, it was one of the girls' versions.
Right.
And when it was a different tint, it was another girl's version. And then they're planning 5 seasons, but they set this up so that it's like, okay, well, if they're going to be rescued, that should only be one more season. So maybe we have a full season of the flashbacks and like how they got back into it, and it ties more in together. That's what I would think. That's what my friend and I were talking about.
Yeah.
Is
We got feedback similar to that from Nick saying it seems like we're barreling towards the 90s storyline being post
Yeah.
rescue, so kind of that in between section where they're trying to adapt back to normal life, and then the present day storyline possibly heading back to the wilderness. Are they going to go back to the site of the crash? I think it feels almost like they're destined to, Grace. Like, it
Yes.
feels like they kind
They
of
have
have
to.
to at some point, right? We have to go back.
Yeah, April said it and said that for her, this is up there with the best of Lost. I don't know if you're a Lost person, Todd, but there's one of the best moments in the history of that show is the "we have to go back" moment. And it does feel like they did it. Nah, I won't say they did it wrong, but no, I'll commit to it. They did it, Todd. If like Melanie Linsky and Tawny Cypress and Christina Ricci are not back in the wilderness at some point in either season 4 or season 5, they did it wrong. I think they got to go
I
back.
agree. I feel like they do have to go back. Like, it's something has to happen out there, like one final sacrifice or something to become the final girl anyway.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
Yeah.
just gotta happen.
The other theory was from Stacy. Jess, do you want to talk about a little bit where
Yes.
the
Yeah.
Callie last girl theory is? Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
on
actually thought about this too.
yeah. So yeah, Jesse Camacho on our finale podcast had mentioned, Callie's apple not falling far from Shauna's tree, and whether or not it will be Callie who inevitably takes out Shauna to protect Jeff in some way. Is that something you were theorizing about as well?
So, okay, if you think about it, right, like Lottie was saying, it was you are the child, you are the child of this all. And Callie did sacrifice Lottie, right? She did it, and she
Mhm.
may not have done it on purpose, but it's like, okay, well, now has that whole being entered into Callie, or since it's already kind of been there, is what Lottie was hinting at. Because then we start to see the scenes of where she's manipulating her dad in a way like, hey, dad, have you felt this way? Because I have. And it's like, okay, but was that always like that? Like, we'd never really fully. She was a teenager who was pissed at her mom, but now she's like manipulating her dad to see her side, which seems more like a Lottie thing to do. So,
Interesting.
at the like, if you think about it, if she is the child of the wilderness, she could totally be the ultimate antler queen and the final girl.
Yeah, I could see there being a thing of it, like when they go back, I could see this world where, like, again, the show sort of like misdirecting us, where right now it's like, oh, Shauna versus Ty. But at some point it might be, well, okay, how does Misty fit into that? And then and I really love this theory of like Misty is sort of the chosen one. I don't think I meant to talk about this. I think I sort of moved on, but the idea of Misty being the ultimate outsider of that group, of being not on the team, being the the coach's assistant, really being looked down upon. I do think that there is something to that story being quite powerful in terms of
Mhm.
the way in
Yeah.
which, like, no, all along she is the one who like was able to, was the one that the wilderness chose. She's actually the special one. This idea that at some point, like, the wilderness is unfortunately kind of done with Misty and actually has somebody new who could end up being Callie. And the idea that we go back to the wilderness, and this one thing that Shauna, I think, has been worried about is the way in which uh she's judged and viewed for the things she did, and then Callie coming in and actually, like, then it ultimately ended up being like Callie being the last one left, I think is pretty interesting. And I think really resonant, Jess, with this idea of how trauma, like, she's kind of the only one who we've stuck with, um for mostly like somebody else in their family. Obviously in season 1 we had a lot with Ty and Sammy and her wife, but
Yeah.
we've kind of dropped that mostly, other than like one scene this last season. And then
Yeah.
Misty has Walter, but even then we're like, that's sort of playing into the mystery. Shauna's the one storyline where there's so much about like the
The generational
the
trauma.
generational
Yeah.
trauma. Yeah.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And I think what's interesting is that, at the end of the season, Shauna is kind of cut loose from these family ties, right? She is no longer required to wear this mom mask, for like a lack of a better term, where she can be her full unhinged self, because she
Yeah.
doesn't have to pretend to be Miss Mom anymore. She doesn't
Yeah.
have to worry about Callie and Jeff. And so knowing that she's going to be allowed to kind of run free is really scary and really dangerous, because Jeff kept her in check to a certain extent, right? Like, as much as you can keep Shauna in check, Jeff was there to kind of ground her. And Shauna, without that, is a really scary prospect, Todd, because I think you brought up Walter, Grace. I think Walter, I don't know exactly what's in his mind when he's watching Ty and Misty have that
Right.
conversation, but we know he's had Misty's best interest at heart, right? I feel like he's been very reliably on Team Misty this whole time. And so it's possible that he could be there to help her become the final girl as well.
Yeah. No, that's because I agree. What was that stare at the very
Yeah.
end from him? It was so quick too, with
Mhm.
no lines or anything. It was just a stare. And it was like, what does
Mhm.
this stare mean?
Especially because he had warned her earlier in the season, like, oh, your friends aren't actually your friends, right? Like, he's always been very much pro Misty, trying to save her from herself in some ways. And I wonder, is he like, oh, great, now she's teaming up with Ty? Or is he, it's really hard to read what his facial expression is. And I'm just curious, obviously you have Elijah Wood, you know what I mean? Like, I assume he's going to be in season 4. Is he going to be helping Misty? Is he
Yeah.
going to be helping hunt down Melissa? Because we still got Melissa on the lam too.
For real. There's
Uh yeah. I was beating the drum pretty loudly all season, Todd, of where is Hilary Swank on my television show Yellowjackets that she's supposed to be on.
yes.
I do think when she showed up, I feel like it was great. It was so fun.
It,
I do
it
feel like
was.
it was really fun. I think she's a great person. I think all of us, I think, were a little bit surprised, like Jess and I, and then a lot of the people that we talked about the show with, about how many Yellowjackets we lost this season, which is 2. And then on top of that, how many characters like Coach Ben and Joel McHale shows up on the show just to like, there's a lot that happened, a lot of deaths this
Yes.
season. But it does feel like Hilary Swank is a big enough name that, sort of having lost Lauren Ambrose and as well as Simone Kessel in Lottie and Van, Hilary Swank seems like she could fit right in terms of like being in the mix in the adult version, the present day storyline of the Yellowjackets. But what'd you make of Hilary Swank joining the cast this season as
I thought
Melissa
it
specifically?
was perfect. Like,
Yeah.
I thought it was perfect. It was really fun.
Yeah.
And I feel like she played the role well. She was like, everything is happy go lucky. But I from the second she appeared and was like, my life is fine, I love it and all of this, but then I gave you the tape because I wanted to get rid of this trauma, right? I was like, she's full of shit, because the envelope had the
Yes.
symbol on the left corner. I kept
Yeah.
saying that. I was
Yeah.
like, she's up to something. Something is not right. You
It's like,
wouldn't write that symbol.
girl, you in trauma.
Yeah.
You already are.
But the other question is how does she have the tape?
Yeah, so there is this hint that like her and Hannah connected, right? And so
Hannah told her where to find it. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's it. So is your theory that like Melissa was obviously trying to stir things back up? Because I think that in our
Yes.
YouTube comments we have somebody, I think I think it's Cynthia, who says, I do think that Shauna re-broke Melissa, that Melissa, like, the thing that complicates it, I think, is the letter that Shauna finds under the fridge, right? The letter that does seem to be true to, and it doesn't mean that both things actually can't be true, that like the letter is still sort of like a fake out of like, I'm clearly messing with you and I'm going to write this letter that's a fake out.
It's the envelope. The envelope has, in the return address spot, it's the symbol of the wilderness.
Yeah.
So return to sender is like the wilderness, is what I gathered from it. And it's such a simple clue, but why in the world would she write that if she was just trying to make peace?
Well, right. And the thing is let's pretend, let's remember that like Melissa was shot at by Shauna and
Yes.
clipped her jacket, made her have an accident on herself. And then Melissa attempted to kill Shauna, couldn't go through with it. And Shauna just laughs and says, "You're boring." I don't, if you're Melissa, how can you possibly think that sending this tape to Shauna with the symbol on the envelope is a good idea? Like, has it been that long that you've forgotten what she was like? Maybe it's possible, but I'm with you, Todd. I always felt like there was something off about Melissa. And even if she was telling the truth about the letter, still just destroy the tape. Why are you even sending it to Shauna?
Seriously. But it's what she says to Van that cements it to me, where she's like, you may not be willing to, or you may not be able to. I am.
Van is the one that helped her in that moment
Yeah.
out in the wilderness too. So it's especially like, I don't know, Grace, I wouldn't say Melissa is anywhere near the level of Shauna in terms of like a big bad or evil or however you want to put it. But it feels like she's more on that side than, let's say, a Van is for sure, right? She kills Van, who's gonna die anyway, but she's seemingly fairly innocent.
Yeah, I mean, I think like we're splitting hairs to a degree of like because we basically know by the end of the season that like Melissa is broke. It's like for sure broken.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not she had any moment of like being free of it at all in the intervening time between, which is okay. That's like disagreeing about that to a degree. And I even think like you are both making points that make me like I think I'm mostly in denial. Like I think I actually really like Melissa enough that I want to be like, no, she could have had it, but it's actually Shauna who ruined her life, you know. But maybe not. Maybe Melissa. I mean, it's still kind of it. Like they've all traumatized each other, and they're all messing each other. They're messing each other up. So it is what it is. It is kind of wild to me actually, as I was thinking about like all the people we've died, that like. Yeah, Coach Ben died this season. I feel like that's because so much stuff happened.
It was so long ago now, it feels like.
It does feel like it was super long ago, even though it really wasn't. But
it wasn't. It was like episode 4 or 5.
The wildest thing though is that we're not done yet, seemingly, right? Like we know there is a limitation on the number of Yellowjackets that made it back to society.
Right.
And it feels like we're still over that limit by a couple of people. So people like Jen, Robin, some of these like tertiary characters, they still gotta go. So when is that happening? Because Nat's calling a sat phone. This guy's like, "Hey, yeah, we hear you. We're coming to get you." So when do these other people die? It's like we're gonna have even more of a bloodbath on our hands in season 4. Hopefully, just for the '90s jackets and not for the present day ones, because they're dropping like flies.
It can't be as easy as the sat phone being answered and then being rescued. That's all I know. Like. Because like you said, there's still too many people to make it home. Unless Shauna just goes crazy and kills a bunch of people.
What is the time? Do you know where we are in the timeline? I feel like I'm asking you, Jess, but I'm like putting you on the spot if you don't know.
No, you're fine. I'm gonna find it because I know I have it. I know I have it somewhere.
Yeah, in terms of I'm trying to think because it does feel like we moved so through this season, like the time, like we did basically at least 6 to 7, if not more months.
We know we're in the winter where they get rescued because we know they were out there for, is it 19 months?
Yeah, I thought it might be 18, but maybe it is.
Either way, we're within like give or take a month of them being rescued. So I presume the sat phone is what gets them rescued, especially when we look back in season 1, when they're in the van and they talk about it was Nat that saved us all. We thought maybe the hunting, right? But it seems like no, this is what they were referring to. So I think it's because you call a sat phone doesn't mean rescue's not getting there instantly, right? Like they still have
a 6-day hike at least to get. Well, if they want to get to the place, like there might not be any place to land. You know what? I don't think we have that many people. I think there's kind of only 3 people who could die, which is Aquila and then the two unnamed girls. They're not unnamed, but they're
Robin and
Jen.
Britt, I think.
Oh, and I guess Jen too, right?
And Jen, yeah.
What
So
about
there's
Hannah?
Hannah. Oh,
Hannah
right.
definitely has to die still.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true. There are people who have like died.
Here, I'll bring up my my
Yes,
little
please.
graphic I
My
had. It's
favorite.
not as up to date anymore, but yeah. So we still have Hannah. It seemingly has died, right? Like we assume based on what we've heard, Hannah is dead.
Yeah.
Jen question marks about
Yeah.
still. They said she died, but they also told us Melissa died and she didn't die. And then we have Aquila, Britt, Mari is now dead, and then Robin are our remaining unaccounted for Yellow Jackets.
That feels over the course of, if by next season they get rescued, four people, I guess. Five? 3 to 5 people who technically don't need to die, but are dead by the time we're in the present
Right.
day.
Right.
That's the, and I don't, just to be fair as well, they're not quite as significant. And there's also more adult, like present day people who could die as well. So I feel like I feel like that's a pretty fair pace we could be set on. So one thing that, that Jess and I did earlier was for the last thing we did a not dead draft. So it's pretty common around here for us to do dead drafts of predicting who we think will die in shows, but we did a not dead draft and we tried to predict who wouldn't die. And I think Jess,
We tied.
Did we tie?
I had Mari, who did
Yeah.
die, and you had Coach Ben, who
who
did die. I had Melissa, and you had Aquila. They seemingly are still alive.
I think you win though, because like Melissa was for sure alive, like you do. Whereas so I'll give you the win. But do you have anybody you think like is there? And then basically this is a roundabout way, Todd, of asking you like, do you think there's any more mystery to like who makes it out of the wilderness? Like, is there another sort? Or did we do that with Melissa? That like Melissa was supposed to be dead, turns out she didn't die and she's around.
But what do you mean she was okay? She made it out, but then she died after they were home, or died.
Is that right? Is that right? That's right. That they.
Oh, Jen, you're saying?
No,
sorry,
no,
Melissa.
Melissa made it out of the wilderness, and then she faked her own death,
like a suicide or something.
Exactly, because she said when it's a suicide and they don't just ask any questions.
Right.
And so she faked her own death to basically hide from the Yellow Jackets.
So she made it out, is what we know.
And we've
then died, and then was actually not dead.
And again, some of the theorizing I've seen isn't exactly concrete, but a lot of people have like tried to count the heads in the scene where we on the plane getting rescued, that scene.
Yeah.
And people have been like, we think there's 8, which if you add Melissa into the original people, that would equal 8. Now, my thing is though, what if not all of them get rescued, right? Like there could have been some people still left behind. What if someone like Aquila like chooses to stay or something, right? Like we don't know if when they say, oh, these people are dead, if they're actually dead or we think they're dead. We assume they died a long time ago.
Right.
So who knows? They could go back out to the wilderness in the present day and there's Aquila raising some goats. Anything's possible.
Speaking of
Aquila killing our goats.
Like speaking of the Aquila with the animals thing.
Yeah.
The manipulation again from Lottie.
Yeah.
She orchestrated that whole manipulation and must have some sort of really strong pull, because we know how much Aquila loved those animals.
Yeah.
To make it happen, which is what makes me think back to the Callie thing that I was mentioning earlier. You know what I mean? But when they got the tape, they said everybody who knows about this is dead or here. So again, anybody who did make it from the plane, they would know we're off the plane.
Right.
Am I making sense? Does that ramble?
No, I feel like I wasn't making sense before. So I feel like you're making more sense than I was. So
it makes sense. It's just also when they say, oh, they're dead or off the plane. Well, they thought Melissa was dead and she's not dead.
Yeah.
So like they think that person is dead. Are they actually dead? I feel like someone like Hannah is 1000% actually dead.
Yes.
But I do think we could have characters like an Aquila, like a Jen, where there's a bit of a question mark. Like we don't we maybe just don't know what happened to them, and they presume that person is dead.
Yeah.
The other
Interesting.
piece of it all that I think is interesting, as we talked about sort of perspective and memory and stuff like that, is the idea that we do specifically when we find out what happened to if I'm remembering correctly, or is it a separate flashback when we find out how Lottie died? Is it a retelling of the story? It is, right? It's a retelling. When Lottie dies, is it Callie telling?
It's Callie telling Jeff what happened.
So
So
that
yeah,
doesn't mean that that's how that happened either. So
this is
Sure.
right?
true.
So like, yeah, I think that there's a lot to play with in terms of the whose perspective are we getting things from. I want to talk briefly about the things that have not been answered yet, the mysteries that are still there. And I feel like the two biggest ones, and feel free for either of you to add other ones that you're like interested in, but I feel like the symbol and the no-eyed man are probably the two biggest
Yes.
mysteries that like honestly, this is not a complaint that we didn't get them. It's
No, because
just
we
that
got
like,
so many answers in the
yes,
finale alone.
yes.
No one can complain about not getting
Um,
answers.
do you have any theories about either, whichever one interests you more, either the no-eyed man or the symbol?
I mean, both of them completely. For me, the symbol is more of like, to me, it's just saying like, this is the wilderness.
Right.
So, like, that's what I feel. I don't know. I'm sure, I hope we'll find out more. The No Eyed Man is something that I definitely want to know more about because I have no theories or thoughts or
Yeah.
guesses as to exactly what that could be. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
The thing with the no-eyed man that's interesting is the show made us feel like, oh, this is just an old commercial Ty saw once,
Yeah.
right? But other characters have seen the no-eyed man in their
Yes.
visions, and that makes no sense unless, I guess, it's the 90s, everyone saw the same commercials, but it seems like so far-fetched for that to be the case. So I'm with you. I think the no-eyed man has more of a chance of being a like a trying to think of the way to word it, like not a scientific thing, more so like like a weird thing, like a supernatural thing than the
Yeah.
symbol, because I could see the symbol literally just being, this was a symbol for the mines that were underneath where they were living in the wilderness, and they just saw it once, and then someone saw it once, could be the another big mystery cabin guy, could be cabin guy saw that symbol, started carving it everywhere, and then they just took it to mean, like any symbol, right? Where they just assigned meaning to it.
Yeah.
Um, Todd, what do you make? There was. I feel like this season, I feel like moved us far more in the camp of like everything that happens in the show, even if it feels supernatural, there will end up being an explanation for why it like what actually happened. The best example of that is like the screaming, which ultimately ends up being
Frogs.
these frogs. Are you still in like the idea that like they just believe in the wilderness? The wilderness actually isn't it's just a thing that's like messed with them because of trauma. Is that where you're at, or are you like are you more open to the idea that like we'll find out that like the wilderness, like, or even if we could never get any explanation for like kind of all of it, like which the science versus faith argument, I think, has been the way we've
So
framed it.
I feel like it's almost a red herring in a way. I'm hoping, I guess I should say, because I really was upset with the frogs. Like I was like, come on, no.
Yeah.
Like that's just me, but that's because I wanted it to be supernatural.
Right.
Um the frogs make sense. So I'm almost wondering if it's going to, if they're making us think this is the direction they're going where everything is explained, but then it does actually all have some sort of a supernatural twist. But then again, like Lottie proved that it was more of her manipulation rather than just the wilderness who convinced Aquila to kill the animals, because Aquila's not convinced about the wilderness anymore. Neither is Travis.
Right.
And so, and then she manipulated Callie by saying that you're the one, you're the child of it. So it's all been Lottie who's been telling or making these people do the sacrifices and stuff in the first place. And I don't know. I don't know. My brain hurts for when it comes to
Yeah.
thinking about it so much because it doesn't explain Ty and how she's got two personalities completely. It doesn't explain Van sitting on the airplane. and is this a different reality because she said it's not the end? Like, if this isn't the end, then what's next? It's like, what is next? What is that? And that was her dead.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
try being logic about dead, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lottie definitely seems like, because Lottie is a manipulator in that she's using almost like this religion to manipulate the girls, but it's because she believes in it, right? Like that feels like the reason for the manipulation. Whereas
yes.
I would say Shauna's reason for manipulation is to just exert control over people, right? She always played second fiddle to Jackie. And so it feels like she actually got power out there. And like she says in that final monologue of the season, we had so much fun out there. And it's like, I don't know that I would say
Yeah.
we, Shauna. That's a lot on the we. I think it's more like an I, but
But even like back to Travis and his death, like, weren't there candles there?
yeah. And to make the shape of the symbol,
Yeah.
because he was doing it because he wanted to like cheat death. He wanted to get close to death. So he called Lottie for help and they
Okay,
made the
that's right. That's
symbol.
right.
The
Yeah.
cheating death thing, I feel like in retrospect between the end of season 2 and the beginning and then this one, of like the way in which uh different, like you kind of get chosen and then you may or may not, like it doesn't really matter if you pull it's not like pulling the card means you'll die. It just means like you get chased, and that might mean you, like you're more likely to die, but it doesn't mean you actually have to end up being the sacrifice. I think it's really interesting in the way we look back at Travis's death, in the way that he almost wanted to get us like, because like that's how Nap became the leader, right? Is that she
Yeah.
pulled the card and then the wilderness protected her. So this idea that like Travis was so messed up from that, I think it's very impressive that that's stuff that's like in the show so early and is
Mhm.
being like thematically still pays dividends
Yes. Well,
for the
even
end of
the
season 3.
necklace, though,
Right.
because like the necklace that gets passed on to the person who is supposed to die,
Right.
because Callie had it. So does that mean that Lottie was going to kill her? And then Shauna snatched it.
It's possible. I think anything is possible in that regard because let's remember Lottie's obsession with Shauna's baby when she was pregnant in the wilderness.
Yes.
Lottie sees both that baby and Callie as like ours. This is the Yellow
Yes.
Jackets baby. So she feels some ownership over Callie. That's what freaked Callie out, right? Is like Lottie rambling on about all of this stuff. It almost feels like a self-fulfilling prophecy where Lottie had this vision of that stairwell and the candles and then like created it and fulfilled the prophecy of her death. So
Yeah.
all of it is manipulation, but I don't know. All of it feels like I love that the show is always toying with the science faith of it all, of the is it supernatural, is it real, because someone
Yes.
like Lottie is like you can't ever tell. Like does she just need to like be more regimented about taking her medication, or does she really have some sort of a connection to the wilderness out there?
What's your opinion, though? I don't know your opinions on whether it's like more science fiction or, you know.
I want everything to be explained, but I am so open to the idea that all of the explanation, like I'm open to like one final rug reveal of like, yeah, they're real and there's explanation for it, but it's not a coincidence that it all happened to us, like we
Yeah.
like that to me, like there's a world where like there was, for so long there were these things that we did believe in as like as a society believed were like faith, because we didn't have explanations for it, and then we discovered them, and like is there a real difference to that thing? Like I can see a world where ultimately I think the point is it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see in terms of like who is the last person. I know like Will had asked that question. I feel like we sort of asked it with that, Will had like who will go down as sort of the sole survivor if that's it. It'll be interesting to see who the show, if that is the way they're going, it'll be one person, one yellow jacket left. Like who wins out in that
Mhm.
regard.
And
So
I originally, when I started watching, I didn't think that would be the direction that it would go. But this season, I feel like really played into it.
yeah.
Into
Well,
like,
they even say it, right?
yeah,
Like even Melissa says, like I
yes.
thought it was going to come down to like who's the last one left. It does feel like they're leaning in that direction because if we go into season 4, Melissa's on the run. Ty is going against Shauna, pulling in Misty to do so. Shauna probably is against everyone. That's kind of just Shauna's MO as of late, and
Yeah.
has no F's to give, nothing holding her back, no family tying her down anymore, right? I think this, you know what's, Grace, I'm going to say something I don't think I'd ever say. What happened in season 3, in my opinion, makes me forgive the Adam storyline a little bit.
Wow.
Because I know I hate, Todd, for reference, I hated the Adam storyline in season 1. But I think it kind of makes more sense now. It's almost like a catalyst for Shauna, right? Like, she killed that guy, and we all thought, whoopsie daisy, it was an accident. I don't know. Like, it was just like a stepping stone to who she would become in this season. And like I said, it's been seeded very early on that Shauna would be this person. And we all just were tricked because Melanie Linsky just looks like your mom. She just looks
Yes.
like someone you want
Yes.
to hug, She tricked us. She
Yes.
duped us.
I do agree with you, and I feel like it's just slowly been creeping out,
Mm-hmm.
Todd, before we started, you were like, oh, I'm so excited I get I only ever get asked to do Survivor podcasts. And so apologies for this question. But
No,
if
of
we're going to do the
course.
Survivor analogy
I
of the
do not
Yellow
mind talking about it.
Okay, great. If Yellow Jackets, I mean, there was, I don't know, did you see the crossover marketing of the
Of course, I
Jeff?
loved
Yes,
it.
So good.
so good. The logo and everything. And Jess, we might have to Brant Steele some. I don't know. Just saying, we have to Brant Steele some. Are you Brant? Do you know Brant Steele?
I know about it. I've
Yeah,
just
yeah.
never done it.
Okay, in the not Brant's, it's Todd Steele, which is your simulation of the season. Does it play out like it's happening on the show? Like, is this the voting boot order, or do you think there's somebody, like, would it happen differently if it was a game where they were voting each other out, not killing each other?
If they were voting each other out, I actually can see this happening. So if Misty wasn't the first one voted out, like she somehow was able to stick around, she's gonna make it to the end, right? That makes sense.
You
Shauna
want to
ends
connect
up
her
getting
again.
hated enough by everybody. They're like, she'll never win. So also keep her around.
Yeah.
Ty is a tricky one because Ty and Van would be a couple, but I feel like Ty would go before Van.
Yeah.
Ty is the challenge threat and Van is the social threat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's the only difference I see. Like, other than that, it's pretty on point with Survivor-esque.
Yeah.
There.
It really is.
Jackie was a wild first boot, all-time first
For
boot.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. This show's got to get renewed. What the heck? Renew it. The viewership has been up. Let's renew it.
Yeah, I was looking into this because I start getting nervous, I'm like, where is my season 4 renewal? I need confirmation of it. So I started digging into how did it perform, right? Did it perform better than expected? Are we expecting a renewal? And according to Paramount, it has increased viewership 39% over the last season. So to me, that's a no-brainer. They're promoting it, the hell out of it. We have that Survivor promotional crossover, right? Everywhere I look, I'm seeing Yellowjackets content, and this could be because I consume a lot of Yellowjackets content, and the algorithm knows.
We live in bubbles? What?
Yeah.
Wild.
But this show needs to get renewed. Like, Todd, I don't know where you stand on this, but I know the creators have always said they wanted 5 seasons. I do think they could do it in 4 if push came to shove. I think they could finish the story in 4 seasons. But we can't be done. This can't be it.
I don't think that they'll cancel it. I think it will be renewed. I don't see how it can't. Like, it's got way too much of a fan following, and I mean, isn't like season 1 on Netflix too now or something?
Is that
yes, I think I saw something about that recently. It was no, was it something else? Was it I'm trying to think. Was it Netflix?
Yeah, it says it's on Netflix. Yeah.
Is it?
It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
So like that to me right there is proof that even if it was not picked up by, Showtime through Paramount, it would
Mhm.
go, someone else would pick it up. It will
Yeah.
be finished.
Especially because it feels like obviously the older cast in the modern timeline, all huge names, like
Yeah.
very, well deserved. But I think some of the younger cast, Sophie Thatcher, Ella Purnell, all of those people seem to be also getting a lot of work. So I feel like they'd be dumb to not renew it for another season just to get
Yeah.
more eyes, more money, all of those things. Because these people are blowing up. I mean, as they should. They're incredible actors. But
If it
they
was
kind of
like
have to.
if it was a much smaller network like AMC or something,
Yeah.
I would see less of a chance. But I feel like where it's at and the like fact that so many people do talk about it, I don't see how they
Mhm.
couldn't renew it.
Yeah. Um, okay. This has been so fun to chat about. I am going to break the form a little bit. Todd, you're if people are watching on YouTube on RHAP, We Know Scripted TV, behind it, you are in your Funko Pop. You could you explain what you make?
Yes.
Yeah, what you do with
So
your shop?
for a living, I make custom Funko Pops. So I make literally anybody or anything you could possibly imagine, and I turn it into a custom Funko Pop. Like I'm currently working on a gorilla here.
Wow.
Like it's a process, or from White Lotus.
Oh my gosh, stop it,
As you
Papa,
can see.
Tsunami. Oh,
no!
Pepper, no.
So like me and my husband, we
Yes.
make custom Funko Pops for a living. And yeah, so I make literally anybody you could imagine.
And so by
That's what
that,
you see.
I did ask if you could literally make specifically one character because I
Correct.
wanted to get Jess a Funko Pop from made by you, Todd. And so
No.
yeah, Jess,
This
I
is
don't know
why
if
you were
you
being so cagey
mhm,
pre-podcast
mhm,
about asking a question. I was like,
yeah,
why are
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
being kept out of the
yeah.
loop on something, but
Yeah. I
fine.
should have just pretended I was buying it for me and then said it was for you. But then maybe you would have asked what it was. And I don't know if you're going to be frightened or delighted by the fact that you
If
are
it's
getting,
both, then that's great.
yes, I think you're going to get your very own antler queen.
You will be.
No.
Yeah. A
I
little,
am currently working
yeah.
on your Antler Queen.
Stop it. Oh my
So
God.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna cry on
sooner
a
than
podcast because
later,
I'm
you will have her.
that is so exciting. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. You know what's funny is I was literally thinking to myself, I'm like, what kind of Funko Pop would I order?
I think it was hard to think about which one specifically I would have gotten you out of all the characters. Like I think you could have done Misty would make is a
Well,
classic one, but
theoretically,
I
the
like the
Antler
idea of
Queen,
the
we
antler queen.
can pretend it's any of them
That's
because
right.
it's kind of like a rotating gig,
Yeah, it's
Like
technically been
we
Yes.
Nat and Shauna and whoever
exactly
else.
like
And
Shauna is for now.
that's just it, is like the pop you will see is not going to be specifically Shauna as Antler Queen. It is Antler Queen. And it's gonna
Yeah.
be
It could be you,
Yeah.
Jess.
I am Antler Queen. I just need here.
Well, I appreciate it. It was so fun when we connected for you to come on the pod. I was like, oh, it should be so fun to get Jess a Funko Pop. And so
Thank you so much. I'm
yes,
so
no problem.
excited.
Yeah.
Ugh. And you know what? I'm going to, for those looking on YouTube, I am going to put a shelf kind of back here so then I can
Yes.
she'll just sit right over here. It's going to be great.
Amazing.
I'm really excited.
All right. Anything else we should chat about? Did we miss anything, Jess or
I feel
Todd?
like we missed everything and
I
nothing.
know.
It's
I
That's
it's
know.
ridiculous. The
I'm just so
show.
excited. It's so good. I'm so appreciative you came on to chat with us, Todd. As soon as I heard you mention Yellow Jackets, I was like, this we have to, Grace. We have to
Yeah.
ask Todd because I mean, there's so many obviously comparisons you can make to Survivor, to Lost, to all these other shows. But I'm so happy that you're a fan too, because I just feel like I'm not I've said this so many times this season, Grace, but with this show coming on the same time as so many other big shows like Severance, White Lotus, all of those shows, I don't want it to get lost in the shuffle because it's
Yeah.
too good for that. It deserves to be talked about.
Yeah.
I'm super glad you asked me to come on because, like I said, I do Survivor podcasts and I love talking Survivor and whatnot, but I love a good show. Like I love a good TV show and I get really invested. I get super invested in my shows. And Yellow Jackets is one of the few that I get really sucked into.
Can I ask
So
you very quick? So like maybe you don't. You must do commissions for shows you never watched. But were you watching the White Lotus? Like, what else do you want? What else are
oh
you
yeah,
watching?
I love the White Lotus. I'm a huge fan. I started day one, and so like I am not one of those like jump on the bandwagon
Mhm,
late people.
mhm.
I started day one. I love the White Lotus. Same with Yellow Jackets. Started day one. So those are definitely two of my favorites. I also love Invasion from Apple
Whoa.
TV.
Oh
Like
yeah,
not
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I've
yeah,
many
yeah.
heard about
people,
Invasion.
not many people love that. It's a very slow burn, season one, but season two really. I love it. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Like I love TV shows.
We do too here at RGB.
Yeah.
We know scripted TV.
I
So
love it.
we'll welcome you back anytime, Todd. Thanks for joining us. Oh, where can people
Thank you
find
for
you?
having me. You can find me on Facebook, Todd Herzog, or you can find me on Instagram, which is Todd's Pop Shop, or email me at toddspopshop@gmail.com.
It was super. You made it super easy. I was like, "Can you do this?" You're like, "Yeah."
Yeah,
I paid
it's
you,
it's
and yeah, it was
easy. It's
great.
an easy process.
Yep. Jess, what else you got going on?
You can find me at the Jess Sterling. I'm talking about The Last of Us, which just started back up over on
Yes.
Look for the Light.
That's
So
another
that's
one.
it's so good. We're in like the best time for TV right now. It's
Yeah.
Yes.
lovely. And then if you like 90s content, go check out Shit 90 Shows Taught Me, where we talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Felicity. We're finishing up Felicity this season. But Buffy is still going strong. We're only in season 4. We got so much to go. And I've never seen it, so I'm enjoying it unspoiled, living my unspoiled life. It's great. So
So
yeah,
fun.
that's where you can find me. What about you, Grace? What are you up to?
I'm on socials at Hi From Grace or at Go From Grace, and here on RHAP doing the Tastemakers with Taryn. We talk about all the TV and tell you what you should and shouldn't watch, and doing lots of other scripted coverage as well. Todd, thanks again for joining us. Just was so fun to chat about Yellow Jackets all season long with you. So until next time, a licky boom boom down.